Welcome, everyone. It is Maude's Book Club, and every now and then I love to get an author on, especially an author that we've covered for Maude's Book Club. We have covered this author not once, but twice this year alone. If you've been listening to his books as well, Will Wheaton has done an amazing job bringing them to life. I'm so excited to welcome onto the show today. It's John Scalzi. Hello, John.
Hello. Hi, everybody. It's good to be here.
Welcome. So I've got to talk about the fact that your books are perfect for a book club because we will choose a main book every single month and a bonus book. And the bonus book is best if it is standalone and shorter. Why are those books so great for you to write? Because they're so great for us to read.
I mean, I will be honest, I don't have the patience to write a longer book. I was talking with Brandon Sanderson fairly recently, and of course he writes those big, massive.
These ones? These giant doorstoppers behind me.
Yeah. Yes, exactly right. And so, and every once in a while, I'm like, "What are you doing? I could get paid 4 times for what you're doing." You know.
And his publishers know that as well. They're like, "Could we are building new manufacturers and publishers to print these books, or we could cut some."
Yeah, no. So but he's doing what he's doing. And the thing is, for me, I have found that writing something between basically 80 and 100,000 words is pretty much the sweet spot for me in terms of telling a story over a length of a novel. Sometimes I'll go a little bit longer, but generally speaking, it's like, no, after a certain amount of time, I'm like, I'm done. I've said everything that I need to say. The other thing, and I think you may have noticed this if you've been reading the books, is that I don't do a lot of description. I basically describe things when they need to be described, and otherwise I don't go into great detail about it. And when you don't do a lot of heavy description, it's amazing how much shorter your novels are.
So I noticed with Kaiju Preservation Society, a big conversation that we had, I didn't notice it because I was listening to the book, and with Will narrating, I clearly defaulted gender. But our protagonist, you'd left out key details for that reason as well, having a level of ambiguity with the main character and having enough details that anyone could wear Jamie's shoes. What was it like kind of being ambiguous in that regard?
Well, so I had done that before, actually, in a different a series of books called the Lock-In series. With that case, it had a character who had a disease that locked them into their body. And so the way that they were able to go out into the world was through this, basically a robot body, an android body. And there was no reason to gender the android body unless the person who was using that machine decided that they wanted to do it. So as that person walked through the world, people wouldn't know whether they were addressing someone who was male or female or non-binary or whatever. So I wrote those books specifically not specifying the gender. And then when it came to do Kaiju, I started writing the book, and about 2 chapters in, I realized I hadn't gendered the main character yet, simply because it hadn't come up. And I was like, well, if I haven't gendered them now, there's no reason to start. And I just kept going with it. It's not like I'm trying to do it for, to make a huge statement. In both the cases of the Lock-In series and with Kaiju, I didn't even tell my editor that I had done it, right? Mm-hmm. It was just, you turn it in and see if anybody caught it. But like I said, in this particular case, there was no reason. There was nothing that the character was doing that could not have been ably done by a person of any gender. So there was no reason to gender the main character. The one thing that I get pushback on is the character is, talking about the fact that they, their job is lifting things. And people are like, well, that kind of naturally, defaults to a guy. And I was like, well, 2 things. One, the other person in the book whose job is to lift things is someone named Val, who is very definitely gendered as a woman. And Val is a real person. This is literally my friend Val, who is a weightlifter. So there is no the argument that it kind of defaults to a guy just doesn't work for me, because I'm like, this is literally somebody I know who I put into the book because I thought it would be fun surprise for her when she read the book. She's like, wait a minute, this is literally me in the book, which is how she found out that she was in the book. So.
Have you written other people? Is it something that you'll try to do from time to time?
In Kaiju, this is a fun fact. In Kaiju, the doctor who gives Jamie all the vaccinations,
Hmm.
Dr. Lee, is based on somebody I went to high school with,
What?
who is Dr. Sandra Lee, aka
Pimple
Dr.
Popper!
Pimple Popper. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
You
that's
went to
literally
high
her.
school with Sandra?
Yeah, no, that's she and I went to high school together. She was the year behind me. I'm class of '87. She was class of '88. Um, and so
What?
and so I was just like, I need to have someone I know who's comfortable with needles. And it was very much, I was like, I'm going to put Sandra in it.
She will
And it
cut
was really funny
cysts
because
out of
I
your
was,
body.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And so I saw her at a reunion, when the book came out. And and I was like, just so you know, you're in my book. And she's like, what? And then she read it and she was delighted.
It
So
was
she's actually the most famous person who's come out of my school.
that's
So
amazing.
we're all thrilled with her and the fact that she has been so successful and also has done a really good job of kind of demystifying something that's gross and making it so that people understand it and that it is humanizing something that otherwise people would might make fun of. She's a good and decent person, and we like her a lot.
Also, one person's gross is another person's relaxation to go to bed each night.
Yes. And again, bless Sandra, but it's like the whole thing where people are like the pimple popping and they're like, you can watch this. And I'm like, I could watch that.
Or I could do anything else.
I could do literally anything else. But the fact that she is just like, so like, this is so cool. Watch, look, it's oozing like this. And you're just like, oh man, it's good that she has the line of job that she does because she is so good at it. That is definitely, if I were going to be a doctor, that would not, 100% would not be my specialty.
Fair enough. I do love though that scene with Dr. Lee is a laugh out loud moment. That was so
Yep.
funny. The side effects of medication, and it's like, you could die, you could shoot yourself. Like, what a great, what a great little moment to have there. All things could
Cute.
happen. Speaking of that, KP Dubs does ask, how difficult was it making sure not to use pronouns or references that would give away a gender for your ambiguously gendered character, Jamie Gray? Also, P.S., the gender was a grey area. I see what you did there, Scalzi.
Yeah. So it wasn't that difficult for two reasons. The first is it's a first person character, right?
Mimi.
And so referring to themselves would always be you or, I did this or whatever. So that made it a little bit easier. And then after that, just in the matter of how people were referring to Jamie in conversation and stuff, you have to pay a little bit of attention to that. But generally speaking, it wasn't that difficult once I decided to do it. And I think part of that is I have a little bit of a default just generally anyway. If I don't know the gender of someone or if I'm meeting them for the first time and whatever, I just basically default to they anyway.
Mhm.
That's just who I am as a person. So defaulting to a they pronoun set wasn't a difficult thing to remind myself to do over and over. It helped that for the lock-in series, which came out a decade before, I had done it already. So basically, I had that tool in my tool set. But again, if you are basically doing a character from a first-person point of view, then a lot of the need to gender the character kind of just goes out the window because they're not gendering themselves and their description of themselves. And you, as the person telling the story, are not required to do it either.
Mm.
The thing that I think is fun is if you do it if you do it in a way that is not obtrusive, right? Which is what I did. I didn't want to call attention to it.
With Neve as
What
well.
I Yeah, and
Mhm.
what I think is interesting is to find out how people default. So when I did it with lock-in, what I discovered was half of the women, half of them thought Chris, who is the main character, was a guy. Half thought it was a woman, or they were a woman. The men almost 95% was like, this is a dude, because that is just the default. And very much the same sort of thing again with Kaiju and Jamie, where it goes in. Now you noted a complication, which was for the audio, it's Will Wheaton reading it, and so because Will is a guy, there is a tendency to default to, obviously it's telling the story from a male point of view, and that's perfectly fine. With the lock-in books, we actually had two narrators. We had Will Wheaton and we had Amber Benson, and you could pick which one you wanted to
Oh, that's
listen
cool.
to. Yeah. So, and this for Kaiju, they were like, we're just going to go with Will, which is fine because Will is just a fabulous narrator for me. So I'm certainly not complaining about that. But that is a artifact, and so the people who have read the audiobooks or listened to the audiobooks have a tendency to think of Jamie as a guy.
You and Will, there's almost like a synonymous thing happening with you two, just because 2 out of 2 of the books that we've done, you have written and Will has narrated. How did you stumble upon that? And did it have to do with the fact that you got him for red shirts and he was in Star Trek and that was a match made in heaven?
Well, so the funny thing is that Will and I have a friend in common, our friend Michael Burns. And I knew Michael from junior high. And Will knew Michael, as I understand it, knew through Anne. Michael knew his wife Anne before Anne and Will got together, and then
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a very long time ago. And so I think it was about 2008 or so. Mike and Will were talking about books, and Will was like, I've just been reading this book. It's called Old Man's War. It's by this guy named John Scalzi. It's such a good book. Have you ever heard of this book, or have you ever heard of this author? And he's like, yes, I have. I was in his wedding, right? Because and then the next time I was in California, I went and I had lunch with both Will and Mike, and then from there, Will and I became friends. Now, one of the things that was kind of fun was when we met, he asked if he could borrow one of my short stories as sort of a calling card, because he wanted to narrate it as basically an audition tape to do audiobooks, because he was interested in doing that. And of course I said yes, and I gave him a story to do that. And then in 2010 or so, Audible bought a whole bunch of my backlist, and they said, do you have anybody that you would like to do the audio? And I was like, yes, Will Wheaton. Not only because he was a friend and because I knew that he was interested in getting into audiobook work, but also at the time, Will had 2 million Twitter followers, and I was quite aware that if he started narrating books, a whole bunch of people who were his fans who had never heard of me would listen to my books because he was narrating them. And
business.
So that's... Yeah, it was a business decision, as well as, this is my friend and he would be awesome. And the other thing is that Will and I are about the same age. We both grew up in the same area. We both basically have the same intonations. He is as close to me narrating my books as you're going to get, but he does it better because he's a professional actor, right? And so, and it's also great because whenever he has a question about a book while he's setting up to narrate, he can literally just text me. It's like, dude, how do you pronounce this? So yeah, we've had that relationship I think now for about 15 years, where he's narrated a lot of my books, and it's a great relationship, and I'm hoping that I will continue to be able to work with him as we go along. He's not narrating the new book, which is coming out in a couple of weeks, because that is being narrated by Tavia Gilbert, because it is from the point of view of a woman character, and it made sense to go with a different narrator for that. But generally speaking, he's going to be, if we can cross fingers, we'll be able to keep him. I would be happy to continue our association for as long as he wants to do it.
I think he does a really good job with your comedy as well. Like, I can hear him bring your humor to life like that, and Jeff has a question about the humor. What is your technique for keeping dialogue realistic but funny? Do you write dialogue and then go back and punch it up, or does it just come out funny?
Okay, so here's a true thing that makes other authors want to murder me, which is that I don't revise. Um, see, see,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, and having said that, that's not quite 100% accurate because what happens is I'll write something and then the next morning I'll go and reread what I wrote the day before and then, make minor edits and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I'm editing as I go along. There's mostly minor edits, a tweak of a sentence here or a tweak of this there. It's very infrequent that I will have to do any substantial revision. And so when it's done, and so out it goes. So basically, the humor aspect of it, the way that I explain it to people is I think every writer gets a few gifts for free. There are things that they do particularly well, and it's not that they can't do other things, but those other things take more of a work. So the two things that I think that I get quote unquote for free are dialogue, which I and humor, which are a great two to have because humor and dialogue are so intertwined that you can't basically do one without the other. And so I don't really think about it that much. I just write it and I'm like, oh, that seems funny, or this is what somebody who is being sarcastic would say in this particular thing. Now, I talk about them as being gifts, but you have to be careful because if you get something in your writing toolbox that is kind of low effort for you to use, like that you can do it, then it can also become something that you default to too much. Like
Mhm.
there will be scenes that I will be writing that are difficult for me to write, and there's some part of my brain that's just like, just do it in dialogue, just make it funny. We can get through this, and then we can go do
Right.
something else. And I have to be really careful not to default to that, and to actually write the scene and write the moment like it actually needs to be written instead of what's easy for me to do.
Hmm.
So that is a thing that I had to learn to do, to actually not just give in and try to make everything funny, right? So for me, the humor comes naturally, the dialogue comes naturally, and I think when I say that, part of that is also I spent years being a film critic and an entertainment writer. And so, literally, I would watch a movie or two movies a day, every day for years. And so much of what happens in movies has to be conveyed in dialogue, has to be
Hmm.
conveyed in how the characters are reacting to each other. So, in many ways, my story school, if you want to call it that, was not novels, but it was film, right? And so that's why I kind of default to a three-act structure where I do a lot of dialogue, where I don't do a lot of description, because if you read screenplays, and I'm sure you do, you know that there's not a huge amount of description in them.
Hmm.
There's just enough to get things going, and then that's where the people who are making the film, the set designers and the costume designers and the hairstylists and everything else come in and do their part. So all of that is part of my story education, so to speak. And so when I started writing novels for myself, that's kind of where I defaulted. Whoa, I'm
We got a
sorry, I had a
cat.
cat.
We got a cat. Which
I had
one's
a
this
cat
one?
that just. This one is. Oh, there you go. That was Saja, our brand new kitten. He was a little black kitten,
Cat
and
number four.
he. That is number four. He is a little chaos demon, and we love him. But wow, he has really upended things among the three other cats. So in any event, he's delightful. I'm glad we have him, and also I'll be glad when the whole sort of reset of where all the cats are in relationship to each other is settled.
The dynamic, huh?
Yes, the dynamic is a real thing. One of the cats, the other male cat, Smudge, is like, "Oh, there's another cat," and they've started to play and wrestle with each other, which is
Oh,
super
that's
cute.
good.
But Sugar and Spice, who are the two female cats, are like, "Who the? fuck is this? We are not happy about this at all. And so, and of course, Saja just comes in and is like, hey, I'm here, I'm a cat. And the other one, and the two female cats are like, we're going to cut you now.
Yeah,
We're going
yeah.
to leave you bleeding on
That's
the
not what
deck.
we do around here. No. Mm-mm.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yep.
And it will get itself sorted out. We had the same thing happen when Smudge came in because we'd had the two female cats beforehand. They're sisters, and we got them at the same time. And then Smudge came in a few years later, and that whole drama happened again. So
Got it.
this is something we're familiar with. It's delightful and it's fun, but also, there's so much drama that's going on in our house right now with the cats.
Saja, Robin in the chat says, is it Saja like the Saja boys from K-pop Demon
Yes, it
Hunters?
is. Yes, it is. Because K-pop Demon Hunters is just a delight of a film, and
So good.
it's so good. I mean, again, if we're talking dialogue and humor and stuff like that, it just absolutely nails it. It's obviously just this musical fable and stuff like that, but it's just so delightful. I feel very proud as a 56-year-old clueless dude that I got onto the K-pop Demon Hunter bandwagon just before it broke into the culture at large because I watched something about it. I watched some young people talk about it, and I was like, all right, I'll put it on. I'll see what it is because I do like animation. I do animation with Love, Death, and Robots, which is
sure
also
do.
on Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
and so I put it on, and I wasn't expecting it to be delightful. I mean, I expected it to be okay. I expected it to be very specifically for K-pop. But literally from the first, scene where they're beating the crap out of the demons on the plane, and I'm just like, I'm having so much fun with this.
It had no right to be
and
that
then,
good.
all the songs are wonderful. All the characters are just beautifully defined. And this is what I'm talking about, to go back to the thing about the humor and the dialogue and so on and so forth, is that you can develop so much about a character by how they're talking to each other, how are they having that relationship between each other. You know about Zoe, you know about Mira, you know about Rumi by how they interact with each other, right? And that's all through the dialogue, and it's through the humor that they have with each other. And that is a piece of storytelling craft that I think often will be underutilized, particularly in science fiction. And so I'm happy to be able to bring that into my storytelling and to bring it into science fiction in general.
I got a fun fact for you. If you got Dr. Sandra Lee, Arden Cho, the voice actor who plays Rumi, is in my softball team.
Oh, wonderful. Well, when you see her next, please pass along my compliments because she's does such a wonderful job with that. And one of my favorite lines actually is from her, and it's just a throwaway line, but when she goes to go see Jinu, right? And he calls it a date. She's like, what? No, it's not a date. And he's like, and he shows the card that's like, save the date. And she's like, oh, why are you so old? And I'm just like, oh, that's what a perfect line of dialogue, and so perfectly delivered.
How many times have you seen K-pop Demon Hunters, John Scalzi?
I have seen it. Okay, I've seen it only twice.
Okay.
But the desire to see it more has been frequent. But here's the thing that I have seen over and over and over again. I have watched so many YouTube videos of like vocal coaches reacting to Golden, the big song.
Oh, I know.
Oh yeah. And the thing
It's
is
so
is
high.
that, yeah. So EJ, who is the singing voice of Rumi, hits an A5 in that, right? And so all of these vocal coaches are like, I'm listening to this the first time so that you can see my reaction. And she hits that first A5, and you can see the top of their heads just completely go off. Because an A5, for those of you who know nothing about musical notation,
We're going up, it's our moment. But it goes even higher.
Yeah, it's all the way up there. I'm still shining now, like I'm born to be. And you're just like, oh my God. And because I heard it and I was like, Okay, that's pretty cool. But yeah, like watching, like I was obsessed for about a week of just going watching all the vocal people reacting because every time she hit that first A5, they're like, "We were not expecting that. Did you know that this is a very difficult song to sing? Oh my
Yep.
gosh, she has nailed that." And the fact that it's also the songwriter did it to herself, which
Yeah.
is, why would you do that to yourself? And maybe the answer was because she wasn't expecting that she would actually be the person who was singing in the movie. My understanding was that as a songwriter, she was just putting in the songs, and then they would thought that they were going to get someone else, and then they finally were like, no, no, actually, you can hit that note, so
That's
go
exactly
for
what
it.
happened. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, you just
yeah.
wrote it and they're like, you're obviously singing it. And she's like, okay.
Yeah, I did this to myself, which again, as a creative person, I can absolutely understand, right? Like I just recently wrote a novel where the moon has turned to cheese,
Ah, I
right?
know. And you won't specify what cheese it is. It's the first
And I
question
won't
I want
specify what,
to know.
and I don't regret doing that, and I'll get back to that later. But the whole point of it was, I basically my editor was like, "What are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna turn the moon to cheese just to see what will happen." He's like, "Of course
Okay.
you are." And the thing was is and then I'm in the middle of writing this, and because I wasn't thinking about it, I was like, and every day we'll have a different main character, so it's a collection of short stories instead of a normal narrative. It's very, Robert Altman-esque and stuff like that. And I'm writing this book and I'm on like day 15. I'm like, why did I do this to myself? What was I thinking? But that's the thing is that your creative brain, the writer brain, the one that's like, I want to do something that nobody is expecting, is like, I'm going to write this book about moon cheese and have this multi-dimensional cast and it's going to be amazing. And then the person who has to write it ends up being you as well.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I
Oops.
hate that. I hate that version of myself and I'm going to go run them through with a sword. And I can just imagine that EJ was kind of feeling the same way. It's like, I've written this amazing song, haha, they're gonna have to write it, have to sing an A5. Oh crap, I did that to myself.
Now I have to do that. I've seen like deep dives into the fact that Rumi as a character, that's not in her range. And so you have to power up, what is it, the Honsen? The
The Hanmoon. The Hanmoon.
Hamun. Yes, and
Yeah.
that's why you have to hit that high note because it's only when you've charged it enough that you are golden and that the Hamun, like, I love it. I've deep
Yeah.
dived on this and I love the fact that we are like together writing our TED talk on the
Oh
impact
yeah,
of
no,
K-pop demon
this is
hunters.
amazing. And not only that, but the thing is like, and now I have the thing of, it's like, which demon hunter are you, right? Are you Rumi or are you Mira or are you, Zoe? And I know exactly 100% of which of the demon hunters I am. I am 100% Zoe, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
No question.
my wife, who is 3 or 4 inches taller than I am and is an absolute Valkyrie of a human, is 100% Mira.
Yep.
Like if you cross Mira, she'll be like, and if you cross Chrissy, my wife, they're both of them will be like, well, now you gotta die, right? And I'm just like, this is awesome. So
Oh, I love that. We're talking
yeah,
about the cheese, the moon being cheese. I
yep,
saw in another interview that you were saying you won't specify the cheese, but you can almost guarantee people who love to deep dive and do research and have maths and science in their pocket at their disposal will crunch the numbers for you and dictate the results. What have people come up with? What is the best cheese for the moon, according to smart people with lots of time on their hands?
it's really been really funny watching people try to figure it out. And I will tell you why I won't do it. Because if I specify what kind of cheese it is, someone, these same people, will be like, well, then the moon wouldn't be the diameter that you said it was, and it wouldn't have the albedo that you said it was, and it wouldn't compress like the way you said it. And all the science would be wrong, right? And one of the secrets to writing good science fiction I've learned over time, at least for me, is don't over explain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not that smart, right? I stopped being able to do math in the 8th grade. The quadratic equation is about as far as I got.
The
So,
what?
the quadratic equation,
Cool.
first, outer, inner, last. You,
Yep.
you, nope. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about,
Yep.
right? It's like there's nothing there. And so if I try to go too deep into the science or the physics of it, I'm inevitably going to be caught out. But if I leave it like just blank enough, then the people who do have that knowledge will go ahead and crunch the numbers and make it logical in their own heads. And so the real argument has been whether it's a soft cheese, like
Brie
like
is
a
a soft cheese.
like a
Yep.
brie,
There's
or
no
it was
way.
the one that I was trying to think of, the buffalo cheese, mozzarella,
Hmm.
or if it's a hard cheese like a Parmesan or something like
Okay.
that.
I
And
was thinking Swiss
the
because of the
argument,
craters.
right? Well, the thing is that the argument for it being a softer cheese is because that would generate more steam and there would be more explosions and all of this sort of stuff, right?
Got it.
And then there are some people who are like, no, it would make sense that it has a little more structural integrity so that you would end up with the Parmesan. And I'm just literally there like, do go on. Please, keep going. Because here's the other thing, which is that when you're dealing with literally a volume of cheese that is the mass of the moon, it's not necessarily going to be the case that the cheese is going to be made by any creature that is native to Earth, right? It's entirely, possible that it could be 100% alien cheese, in which case
Hmm.
arguing about whether it's a goat cheese or a buffalo cheese or a cow cheese or any of those sorts of things might be completely academic. But again, this is why I leave it completely blank for people to discuss. And also to watch people get frustrated that I haven't explained it. They're like, you need to explain this. I was like, do I
It's
though?
my book.
Do I? Do I? Because it would be much less interesting if I were to explain it
Mhm.
rather than allowing people to spend literally hours speculating about what kind of cheese it is.
Well, that kind of answers my question from both Tim and Jeff, who ask, how much research do you do on the science in your books, and how much do you worry about the science being completely accurate? I feel like
Well,
we got our
here's the
answer.
thing. Yeah, well, here's the thing that is absolutely true, though, which is the science that we already know, like literally the stuff that we know, you have to get right, right?
Yep.
Because otherwise you will just throw people out, right? If you responsibly, if you know the actual science as we understand it right now, then you can sort of responsibly sort of go from there, take the next steps, go off and iterate onto the speculative elements that make science fiction science fiction. So it's not difficult for me to get the basic science of what we know correct, because you can easily research that stuff and literally just type in the internet, ignore the AI stuff at the top, which will tell you that you can put glue on pizza, and then go to the actual sources that will give you the information.
Yep.
But when you do the speculative stuff, um, the vaguer the better. Like, for example, if you go back to Old Man's War, which is the very first book I wrote,
20 years ago.
you need
Happy 20th.
20 years. Yes, thank you
Woo.
so much. Thank you very much. But when I was doing that, I had spaceships that needed to go from one star system to the next. And I happen to believe that you can't actually break the speed of light. It's
Mhm.
not just a good idea, it's the actual law.
Okay.
And so I had to create this other version of basically warp travel so you can get from one place to the next without breaking the law of the speed of light. And so I have these things that are called skip drives that literally take you from our universe to another universe that is almost exactly the same, except for like one, electron position different, right?
Hmm.
And when you do that, you're not traveling from one specific spot to another in a linear way. You're just literally just kind of popping through a hole in the universe. And when you do that, you can just show up wherever you want,
Got
right?
it.
And so I have this scene in the book where someone's like, "Could someone please explain the actual skip drive to me?" And so they talk about how it works, but they're like, "Well, how does that work? What are the details?" And one character says to the other, "I can't tell you. You literally don't have the math for it, right?"
Mm.
And which is doing two separate things. One, it is communicating that this is really complicated and it's not germane to the story that we're telling, so we're just going to skip over it. And it's also signaling that I, the author, don't have the math.
Right.
So,
Yeah. We when we were discussing Kaiju Preservation Society, one of our readers in the book club works with nuclear reactors, which like, what's the chance of that happening? And was kind of talking about the science, and I was learning things. But we
yeah,
also have like what I love that your book does, because if we get too bogged down by the science, like I will have, my brain will get scrambled. So I kind
yeah,
of like with the hand wash kind of explanation where it's like, because it is, and you're like, say
yeah.
less, got it, it is because it is. I love it, and now we can move on.
It is exactly the excuse that I give for that, where because I do that is exactly the sort of thing with someone who actually knows about the construction of nuclear reactors is like, well, that's not going to work that way. That's not how nuclear reactors work. And the response in the book is, well, you have to remember that these are not designed nuclear creatures. These are evolved nuclear creatures. The evolution is going to work differently than
Mm,
an intentional design from a nuclear reactor point of view. And also, it is only going to develop for sufficiency, right? Because the idea that evolution is perfecting anything is completely wrong. Evolution will get you to the point where it says, good enough, and then you can go do whatever you're doing. And anybody who doubts this has to just look at a human spine. A human spine makes absolutely no sense for anything at all. It's just barely good enough to do bipedal motion.
hmm.
And that's basically when evolution was like, we've taken that as far as it needs to go. Let's go ahead and congratulations, you can walk on two legs.
Yes, but don't
And so when we
sneeze
know
because you'll
that,
rupture a disc in your back.
yes, exactly right. And so that's the whole thing is just like I cover it by going, well, it's evolution, and evolution is messy. It's not trying to perfect it, it is just good enough. And then when you put it like that, people are like, I don't know, but fine. And then they
Yeah,
just continue on with the story.
yeah. You could ask a kaiju, and then you'll get the end. Oh, wait, okay,
Yeah,
exactly.
you could ask a kaiju, and then you'll be eaten.
So Vaden asks the question: how
Mhm.
much fun was it to work? And work was it to create kaiju as ecosystems rather than creatures? Because that's personally like something about the book that I adored. I thought that was so
Yeah.
clever. Mm,
Well, I think this is the thing that you have to, again, going back to the science we know, right? Which is uh, kaiju are super cool to look at. Godzilla is super cool to look at. Pacific Rim is super cool to look at. King Kong super cool to look at. But they can't exist. It's the square cube law. So when you are trying to do something that is honoring what we actually know about the science of the real world, the square cube law in terms of surface area and volume and everything else like that, and whether they would be able to do what they do. Um, Part of that was saying, okay, if you had these things that they did exist, how would they be able to feed themselves? How would they be able to, do all the things that they do? And part of that is not being a single creature,
mm.
but being this ecosystem of parasites and commensal creatures and everything else that all work together to make this thing viable. And again, if you think about it too much, you are eventually going to run into the, questions of how it really works. But for the purposes of the story, it is just detailed enough and it is just interesting enough and it is just novel enough that you're not just redoing Godzilla, you're not
Yep.
just redoing, all these other sort of giant monsters. You are kind of putting a new spin on it, and that's actually something that I think is what I do in terms of particularly the standalone books. Um, Maybe the thing that's kind of my calling card is that I take stories or ideas or tropes or cliches that people already know, like a kaiju, like the idea of the moon turning to cheese, or in the case of Starter Villain, basically a James Bond villain. And I do ask, okay, in the real world, how would that actually work? So, how do you actually make a kaiju that makes sense?
Hmm.
Um, how do you how do you make a James Bond villain whose plan to take over the world does not sort of just, is contingent on them being stopped, right? Rather than, because the whole thing about James Bond villains is James Bond villains always want to take over the world. And the real question is like, okay, and if you've succeeded, what then?
Yeah, what do
Because
you do?
now because now you are responsible for crop failures in Paraguay, right? So how do you craft a real world, capable James Bond villain, and that's and it kind of just going on from there. And so that is a thing that I do. So when I'm thinking about these kaiju, I'm not just thinking of them stomping around, uh, Tokyo or San Francisco, crushing buildings and fighting single monsters. I'm saying, how do they actually work in harmony with the world that they live in? And what would our role as humans be, you know, coming to their world instead of them coming to ours?
I like that. I do have a question now that we've gone into Starter Villain. This
Hmm.
is verbatim, the journalist that Maude is. Eat the rich. Discuss.
Yes. You know, I I didn't mean to become a sort of let me start off by saying, I am a completely bland petite bourgeois kind of guy.
Great
I am
caveat.
not. Yeah, yeah. I'm not a socialist rabble rouser. I'm not you Little Red Book or anything else like that. But there becomes a certain point in the bend in the curve with capitalism and the way things work, where you're like, you guys who have become the wealthiest among us have stopped um, having that relationship with the rest of us where there is supposed to be at least some sort of mutual benefit. We are literally in an era that from a inequality point of view is matched only, in recent times by the Gilded Age of the 1880s and 90s, where you had people like Vanderbilt and Rockefeller and all of these folks who were just hoarding all of this wealth to themselves. And at least those folks, got it into their head that they should actually be trying to return the philanthropically in a way that this current generation of billionaires emphatically does not. I
Hmm.
mean, Carnegie in the United States and Canada sponsored libraries and also pipe organs because he was a pipe organ guy. Rockefeller founded the University of Chicago. All of these sorts of things. There were things that they did. But we don't have that, generally speaking, with the current generation of billionaires. So at a certain point, you're not really for us anymore, and you're not really making the world better at this point, so you're fair game. And that's kind of where I am with the billionaires, at least in the books that I'm writing. And the problem is, he said, getting on his soapbox,
I
there is
heard it.
no there is no billionaire that I have written that is anywhere as awful, bluntly awful, as the billionaires exist in the real world. They just don't. They None of them bought an election. None of
Yep.
them is trying to live forever by taking their platelets from their children. All of these weird ass things that billionaires are doing. And then the whole thing about billionaires kind of just basically going, well, most people are just kind of gumming up the works, and we're trying to work real fast towards the superhuman, which is, of course, us. And
Yep.
you're like, you guys are just literally the worst people. No one actually likes you, and the only reason they hang around with you is because you have money.
The
So
most alarming TikTok I ever saw was a futurist who goes around doing talks about future technology, sustainability, etc. And he was
yeah,
hired by billionaires and he thought he was doing one of his presentations. And instead, they went into a small room, a boardroom, sat him down, and it's like the top 5 billionaires of the world sat him down and picked his brain. And
yeah,
he said the most outstanding thing that I realized is not one of them asked how they could fix the current state of things, what they could
No.
do to sustain the world as it is. Every single one of them asked how they could create their own ecosystem, how they could build, whether it's on Mars or in an underground facility or whatever it was, hand-selected people that they have deemed worthy to reprocreate the world once once everything inevitably ends. So all of the billionaires were like, the world is doomed. We will not pool our resources to save it. We want to know how to phoenix rise from the ashes and just choose and hand select the people that we want.
And here's the thing about that. Of course, Cory Doctorow very recently did a novella about the collapse of civilization and a whole bunch of them going into their bunker and then just dying horribly as they would. But the other thing is like it's really hard to impress on them, and as a consequence on anybody else who's sycophantic towards them, just how hostile to human life the rest of the solar system is. The moon is a terrible place to be. Mars is a terrible place to be. Like it's hard to exaggerate how bad it is. You know, the Antarctic in the middle of winter is Copacabana Beach compared to what Mars is. But they're like, no, we'll start this new life on this airless rock, or this thin atmosphere of carbon dioxide that would absolutely 100% kill us the moment we took off our things. And it's like, no, your money is much better spent saving things here. But no, that's not what they're interested in.
No, at all.
At all. So like I mentioned earlier, I write episodes of Love, Death, and Robots, which is a animated series on
You're
on
up
Netflix.
for an Emmy for that one, the show?
I'm not personally up for an Emmy, but they are up for 2 Emmys, and they won, I think, a couple more in the juried Emmy Awards. So they're
fantastic! Look at that.
They're doing fantastic. But I wrote this episode that was called Three Robots Exit Strategies, where it was talking about you have these 3 robots in a post-apocalyptic world, and what they're doing is they're going from one place to another, looking at how humans dealt with the world after the economic and social collapse that inevitably happens. And so one of the scenarios was the people who did the survivalist camps, the seasteading, the U.S. government and the other governments that all went into an underground bunker, and then of course the trillionaires who went to Mars and stuff like that. And the spoiler alert, it's not really gonna ruin your enjoyment of it. No, none of them got out alive because they didn't bother to save the world that they were on. And so there is a scene where a rocket is launched. It goes to Mars. They're like, somebody got out. Who was it? And we literally see, a civilization on Mars. And it pans, and the people who have survived are cats. And and the final line is a cat looking at the camera and going, "Who were you expecting, Elon Musk?" And when I wrote that, and when it first came out, a bunch of Elon Musk, fanboys were like, "How dare he? How dare he?" And it's like, I will tell you what, that episode has aged, unfortunately, absolutely beautifully in the 3 years since it came out.
Yeah, damn. That's not what we want. But I mean, you're predicting things too accurately, too fast, like too quickly as well.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that, but it happens sometimes.
Do you think with sci-fi, science fiction, that billionaires, there's another type of villain, or is it going to always be sort of like?
Hello?
Oh, did you lose me? Did I hit my microphone out? Do you have me? It should be good.
No, I lost you. Wait, are you back? Okay. So what was the question? No, I'm still here.
Out to push it back in, because apparently if there's anything tech, you have to.
There you go. I've lost you again.
Right? Really? The mic should be good. I've never had this happen before. No, the mic's working. I think the stream can hear it. It's on your end. Did you accidentally mute me?
No, I did not. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't know what happened.
Woo.
Technology is weird.
Okay, well, that answered my question because I said, do you see in sci-fi any other villain other than the billionaire capitalist? Technology is the enemy.
Technology will get us. Well, and actually, that is the funny thing is that in tandem to that, the whole thing that's going on now with AI, right? And notice the hand quotes there, because the AI that we have isn't actually intelligent.
Yeah.
But certainly one of the things that I find super, super interesting is that when science fiction in the past has essayed AI, we think about robots and we think about, whether or not they're going to be, good to us or whether they're going to want to destroy us all and all this sort of stuff. And the thing is that now and that has been the speculation literally all the way back to Karl Kepek's, RUR, the very first thing that coined the term robots, right? And now we actually have AI, and it's an idiot. It literally can't tell us things, right? It will literally hallucinate answers that sound reasonable but are absolutely not truthful at all.
Yeah,
right?
And you'll ask it, did you make this up? And it's like, yeah, you said you needed an answer, so I gave you an answer.
In fact, I did, and I'm sorry I did, and now I feel full of guilt, all that sort of stuff. One of the things that I will occasionally do, because I do, although I don't use like AI art or AI writing or anything in anything that I do, and I wouldn't post any of it publicly, one of the things that I do is I go and I talk to the large language models or all that sort of stuff, and I'll ask them questions about me because I am just narrowly famous enough that all the large language models know who I am. Like, what can you tell me about John Scalzi? Well, he's very popular. It's like, yes, he is. Keep going. But the thing is that they will inevitably get details of me, my life, my novels, all that sort of stuff wrong. And
Right.
and some of the stuff's just a little bit wrong, but some of it is in fact incredibly wrong. And I am an expert in John Scalzi. I know all the things that he does and doesn't do.
I should hope so.
And so I would hope so indeed. So I can state authoritatively that none of the large language models gets me right.
Got it.
Right. And if they can't get me right, because I have literally been online for 30 years, there's so much information about me out there. Like if you type Scalzi in Google, I literally am the first thing that shows up. Like all other Scalzis in the world have to get into a line because the first 100 things are about me, right? But given how much information is out there online about me, the fact that they can't get it right, what does that mean about all the other stuff that they are supposedly authoritatively speaking to us about? And, the people who are creating AI or large language models will say, but we're improving. It's like, yes, you are improving, but the improvements are not scaling in the way that you think that they are. And again, this is the thing where we expected artificial intelligence in science fiction. Science fiction has prepared us for artificial intelligence. We did not expect artificial intelligence to be less intelligent than our loudmouth uncle at Thanksgiving.
How long do you think we will be in this, though? How quickly will AI start to become at the scale sci-fi has depicted?
Well, I mean, I think there's two answers to that. The AI that we currently have has scaled in a huge way and has already affected our civilization and the way that we do things. Kids are using it in schools and are, not learning things because they can just go to a computer and a computer will spout out something that sounds reasonable. They'll cut and paste and they'll put it into an essay. And then when the teachers get it, they'll use AI to grade it, right? So, those are some of the things they're doing. We see the, AI art. Somebody who was trying to sell AI art at Dragon Con this last weekend got kicked out of the dealer's room.
Yep.
Because
It's not their art.
Dragon Con has a no AI art policy. And they, came up and said, no, this is all AI art. You didn't make this.
Yeah.
You're not actually an artist. Out you go. And so the ramifications of that are already here. Our world is being changed by it. It's being changed in the sense that we are, there are ecological consequences. A lot of our energy, we were getting more energy efficient until about 2 years ago,
Yeah.
when all this AI started sucking up so much energy that Microsoft and Google and all that stuff are working in tandem with power companies to create new nuclear power, power plants.
Goodness me.
Which is not an argument about for or against nuclear power, but that's how much energy it is using that
For
they're
the
like,
sake of convenience.
Yes, exactly. There's the thing where a new data center that is, for AI opened up in Texas, and it's sucking so much water out of the ground to cool it, that people's wells have dried up. All of this sort of stuff. So the consequences are already here. And the funny thing is that, and this is why science fiction is fiction. We talked about AI, right? We talked about having computers that had intelligence. We talked about robots. We talked about, will they end us all? We never talked about in any significant way the idea that that artificial intelligence, again in quotes, would suck the water out of wells.
No.
Right? Yeah.
No, because when you're using it, there is no repercussion. I mean, I think the 1970s equivalent was turn your water off when you're brushing your teeth.
Yeah,
and now
absolutely.
it's
this is the whole thing of the thing of where people. I guess in the UK, there was the suggestion by the government that people delete their old emails in order to free up bandwidth or something like that. I don't know the details of it, but that's what it is. And it's like, there's nothing an individual can do. Delete their emails, don't use plastic straws, recycle, that will make a dent into the fact that the major companies are using so much energy, are creating so much plastic, doing all of these sorts of things, that even if every human tried to live conscientiously, if these corporations don't change their behaviors, it won't make a difference. And this is kind of where we are with AI and how it is using energy and how it is using water and all these sort of environmental things. And the reason that science fiction, never talked about these things is that it's not sexy.
Right.
It is not actually the thing that you can write a compelling novel about. And when I say that, I hedge my bets because Paolo Bacigalupi did, in fact, write a book about water wars called The Water Knife. But generally speaking, if you're going to talk about AI, it's much more compelling to have the AI travel back in time to kill Sarah Connor than it is to have Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT suck all the water out of a small Texas town.
Yeah. Mind you, there's a lot there.
There is a lot there. Now that we have it, there will be a lot to write about it, but that's not where people's brains went, because it's like, I have to tell a story that I need to sell to somebody who can then sell it to a bookstore, who can then sell it to somebody,
the masses,
to a reader.
Look, we're pretty much at time. I still have so many questions. I would like to try to spitfire some of these questions out and answer with the first thing that comes into your head to try and get as many of these out as possible.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Jeff says, what's your favorite pizza topping?
I like pepperoni.
Hell yeah.
Pepperoni is classic. It's good.
What is the most interesting or thought-provoking rabbit hole you've ventured down recently?
Ooh, again, I have to say, just watching all the reactions to all the K-pop Demon Hunters, I can't stop watching those.
I love it. You've referred to your books as gateway sci-fi. Is that what you always set out to write?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the thing is that am a very conversational writer. I tend to be very approachable. Even when I was writing entertainment writing and I had a newspaper column and all that sort of stuff, the idea was to get to as many readers as possible to explain what it was I was trying to do. So when I did fiction, that's kind of just where I fell in.
Mm-hmm. You draw inspiration from a lot of different places. What is it that really speaks to you? Is there something specific that makes you want to write?
Oh, I mean, two things. One, it's just fun. Second, I have a monstrous ego, and the gratification I get by the fact that people enjoy what I write
A
is a
great
thing.
motivator.
It was a great motivator. And the third thing is that anything else that I could do for money is actual work, and that would make me unhappy.
Fair. All right. I like that.
Mhm.
You write in so many different formats, novels, novellas, short stories. How does your process change as you adapt to them?
Um, I have found that the two sweet spots for my writing are over 60,000 words, which is novels, and 2,000 words or under, which is very, very short, pithy stories, or even like newspaper columns. So those things are super easy for me to write. It's weird for me to say that it's easier for me to write a novel than it is to write a short story of 5,000 words, but that's just how my brain works. So yeah, if it's under 2,000 words, not a problem. Over 60,000 words, not a problem. Everything else in between is like, why?
Interesting. All right. KPW says, what is the easiest to write, which is the hardest? Plot,
Um,
setting, characters, action, dialogue.
Dialogue's the easiest thing for me. Description is the hardest thing for me to write because it bores me. And the problem is that if I write description and I'm bored with it, then you will be bored with it. So I have to write description that is actually interesting to me, which again is tough for me to do. So
I've got a couple of questions that I didn't even get to. You're a DJ?
yes, I. This is very, very weird, and I'll be as brief as possible. Um, I I met my wife because she saw me dancing. I took jazz and modern dance in high school, and I loved to dance. And at one point, was at a convention, and the DJ was terrible, and I was like, "Pff,
You
I could do
tapped him on
better."
the shoulder?
Yeah, no, I didn't say it. No, I didn't say it to him personally. The kid was 19 years old and he was trying to do an 80s dance, which he was not alive in the 80s, so he didn't know what people actually was dancing to.
Yeah,
So it
no lived
wasn't his fault.
experience.
But as an 80s kid, I was like, this is not right, and I could do a better job. And they're like, fine, come back next year and do it. I was like, fuck you, I will. And I did. And it went over very, very well because again, I love to dance. That's how I met my wife. Any excuse I can have to dance with my wife is going to be a good day.
Oh,
And so I've ended up having this weird thing where I DJ at science fiction conventions and on the JoCo cruise, which is the nerd cruise that I go on, and it is absolutely wild. And I think the reason that they want me to do it is one, because I do a good job of it. Two, because no one expects this to be an adequate DJ. And then the third thing is that there's something hilarious about our DJ tonight, Hugo-winning science fiction author John Scalzi. Right? Nobody expects a science fiction author to know
Page
how to
Turner.
DJ.
What is your
Yes.
DJ name?
It's DJ's. I just go by DJ. People call me DJ Scalzi. I'm like, yeah, okay, that works.
Great.
But yeah, I don't have a fancy name. I'm just John Scalzi.
Kakahu asks, what inspired you to use the Maori name Kahurangi in the Kaiju Preservation Society?
Well, I wanted to be able to represent New Zealand, and I looked through names so that I could pick a name that would represent and not just be cluelessly offensive. So once I picked Kahurangi, I then also checked with friends from New Zealand and like, am I going to make an ass of myself for using this name? And they're like, no, you should be fine.
Great. And in your postscript of Kaiju Preservation Society, you said you were trying to write a book during the pandemic, but the story was a little bit hard and tough on the brain during a pandemic because it hit everyone really hard. You scrapped that to write something nice and fun like Kaiju. What happened to that idea? You said you might revisit it. Where is it?
Yeah, it's still in a virtual drawer. Partly because the book that I was trying to write was a dark and gritty political thriller, and 2020 was not the year to do dark and gritty political thriller.
No.
And how to put this delicately? Neither is 2025. and I don't suspect 2026 will be either.
Maybe not
Maybe
2027. Mm,
yeah, maybe after 2029 we will see.
got it.
But I have not thrown it away. I don't throw anything away. I just tell people it's like it's still there, and if it ever gets to a point where I'm like, oh no, I actually want to go back to it, then I can do that. But in the meantime, I have other books on the runway. I'm currently writing the book for next year, and then I will, see where we are with other books.
And you're a man who hits his deadlines. Even if it's at the finish line at the 11th hour, you will make it. I
Yes, I do.
watched
I
some
do that,
interviews.
and I will be actually. I'm writing a short story that is due tomorrow, so I will be as soon as I'm done talking to you. Guess what I'm doing?
You're
I'm
getting
writing
back
that
to
story.
that. Well, I won't take up any
Yeah.
more of your time. John Scalzi, thank you so much for talking to me with Maude's Book Club, not only about Kaiju Preservation Society, but also Start a Villain. Guys, if you haven't picked it up on Audible to listen to it with Will Wheaton, definitely give that a go. Otherwise, grab all the books. John, which social medias are you on for people to follow and interact with?
Well, I have my website, which has been there since 1998, which is scalzi.com. I'm mostly on Blue Sky
Mhm.
at Scalzi there, but I am also on Threads and Mastodon and Instagram. So you can find me at all of those either at Scalzi or J Scalzi.
Perfect. And thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Best of luck writing. I'll let you get back to it.
Thank you so much.
Bye, John.
Bye bye.